Ladies and gentlemen, we often think that once someone walks away, that's it. It's over. But the truth is, men don't just come back because they suddenly realize your worth. They return when something about you reminds them of what they can't find anywhere else. The way you act, the way you respond, and the way you carry yourself after a separation, that's what determines whether a man will miss you or forget you. There's a kind of confidence, calm, and quiet strength that makes a man's mind and heart orbit back to you. When a man pulls away or disappears, the natural reaction for many women is to panic. It's that sudden emptiness, the silence after constant communication, that creates an emotional storm inside. The mind begins to spin with questions. What did I do wrong? Did I say something? Is he losing interest? And then, almost instinctively, the urge to fix it takes over. You want to reach out, remind him of how good things were, or convince him to see your worth again. But this instinct, as comforting as it feels in the moment, often backfires. Because every time you chase, you tell him, without words, that he's the one with the power. You shift the balance of energy from mutual connection to one-sided pursuit. And the truth about attraction is simple. No one truly values what they don't have to earn. When you choose not to chase, you're not playing a game. You're honoring your self-worth. You're saying, I'm not going to make someone my priority who's treating me like an option. That kind of self-risk magnetic because it communicates emotional independence. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about not letting his distance control your emotions or your actions. When you can remain centered, peaceful, and grounded even when someone pulls away, that's when curiosity begins to build inside him. He starts wondering, why isn't she chasing me? Why isn't she trying to get me back? That curiosity leads him to reflection, and reflection leads him to appreciation. The truth is, most men are used to being chased after they pull back. They expect emotional reactions. They expect the long text messages, the subtle guilt trips, the pleas for clarity. When you don't give him that, you become the exception. You stand out not because because you're operating from self-worth instead of fear. Fear says, if I don't do something, I'll lose him. Confidence says, if he's meant for me, I don't have to chase. That energy shift from fear to faith, from panic to peace, is what rebalances the dynamic. It silently communicates that you know your value with or without him. It's also important to understand that silence, when it comes from strength, is not a punishment. It's a statement. When you stop over-explaining, stop trying to get closure, and stop demanding emotional validation from someone who isn't showing up, you reclaim your emotional power. And that kind of power is unforgettable. A man may not realize it immediately, but with time, your calm detachment will echo in his mind. He'll remember your peace when he meets someone who reacts with chaos. He'll remember your dignity when someone else tries to control him. He'll remember that you didn't fight for attention, and that made your presence feel rare. Remaining composed when someone withdraws doesn't mean you're numb or indifferent. It means you've mastered your emotions. You understand that love should be freely given, not forced. You realize that your energy is precious and should never be spent convincing someone to stay. When you embody that level of inner confidence, your absence becomes louder than any words could be. And in that silence, something powerful happens. He starts to feel the void you left behind. He begins to miss the peace you brought into his life, the warmth that wasn't suffocating, the love that didn't demand, but simply was. Men always come back to the woman who didn't chase them, not because she was cold, but because she was secure. She didn't try to control the outcome. She trusted her value enough to let life reveal who was meant to stay. That's the kind of energy that makes a man return, not out of guilt or convenience, but out of genuine attraction to the strength and serenity he can't find anywhere else. Emotional self-control is one of the most powerful qualities you can ever develop in love. It's easy to be calm when everything feels secure, when he's attentive, affectionate, and present. But the real test begins when he starts to pull away, when his texts slow down, when the warmth begins to fade. That's the moment most people lose themselves, not because of the situation itself, but because of how it triggers their fears. The fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being enough. These emotions can take over quickly, and without control, they push you to react in ways that destroy your power. You might lash out, demand attention, overanalyze every detail, or beg for reassurance. But what you don't realize in those moments is that your emotional reaction communicates everything about your sense of worth. When you lose control, you send the message that your peace depends on his presence. And once someone knows they can affect you that easily, they subconsciously lose respect for you. Learning emotional self-control doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending to be emotionless. It means learning to feel your emotions deeply without letting them dictate your actions. It's the ability to step back from your reaction and say, I'm hurt, but I won't destroy my dignity over this. When you can process pain privately, breathe through the discomfort, and choose calm instead of chaos, you become someone others can't forget. Because emotional control is rare, and rare is attractive. Most people are slaves to their emotions. They respond instantly. They speak from anger. They make decisions from fear. But the person who pauses, who chooses grace instead of reaction, stands out effortlessly. That's the kind of composure that leaves a lasting mark on someone's mind. When a man expects drama and instead meets peace, it confuses him. He's conditioned to think pulling away will provoke you, that you'll chase or argue or fight for attention. But when you respond with maturity, not with coldness, but with quiet strength, he begins to view you differently. You become someone he can't easily define or control. And that mystery draws him in. It's not about manipulating him. It's about mastering yourself. When you control your emotions, you're no longer acting from fear of loss, but from love for yourself. That's what shifts the entire dynamic. You stop reacting to his distance and start responding to your own standards. You stop trying to fix him and start choosing peace. Emotional control makes you magnetic, but because it shows that your sense of self isn't fragile. You can love deeply, but you won't collapse when someone disappoints you. You can care, but you won't cling. That balance of empathy and strength is what keeps people drawn to you long after the connection fades. A man might meet women who are fun, passionate, or beautiful, but the one who showed emotional control, who stayed grounded when everything else felt uncertain, is the one he'll always remember. Because emotional stability isn't just attractive, it's addictive. It makes him feel safe, respected, and inspired all at once. And that's the kind of woman men always find their way back to. Growth is one of the most magnetic energies a person can possess. When someone walks away, it's natural to feel hurt, to replay what went wrong, to dwell on the emptiness they left behind. But what truly shifts the power is what you choose to do with that pain. You can sit in the waiting room of heartbreak, hoping they'll return, or you can turn that silence into a season of evolution. Growth is not about pretending you're fine or forcing yourself to move on overnight. It's about transforming pain into purpose. When you focus on becoming better rather than bitter, you start to rebuild your confidence from the inside out. You learn new things. You invest in yourself. You improve your mindset, your appearance, your emotional intelligence, and little by little, you become someone new, not for him, but for yourself. The truth is, people are drawn to transformation. When he left, he knew the version of you that depended on his validation, the one who doubted her worth when he pulled away. But when he sees that you've evolved, that your energy has shifted, your confidence has deepened, and your world has expanded, it unsettles him. He realizes that he no longer knows you. And that unfamiliarity is intriguing. Humans crave what feels new, what feels mysterious, what feels alive. So when he sees that you're not waiting by the door of the past, but walking confidently into your future, he begins to feel the loss on a deeper level. You've become someone he can't easily access anymore. And that distance creates attraction. Growth also changes the kind of energy you give off. Instead of desperation, you radiate self-assurance. Instead of seeking closure, you seek clarity within yourself. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift is everything. It turns pain into wisdom and heartbreak into strength. You begin to understand that losing someone doesn't mean losing yourself. In fact, sometimes it's in the loss that you rediscover who you truly are. A man may leave thinking you'll stay the same, but when he sees your transformation, when he realizes you've outgrown the dynamic you once had, it makes him question his own choices. It makes him reflect on whether he walked away from someone who was just getting started on becoming her best self. There's something deeply attractive about someone who keeps evolving. Not because it's meant to impress others, but because it shows emotional resilience. You're no longer defined by your past, you're driven by your potential. Growth is silent, but it's visible in the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you no longer need validation from anyone. When you level up, you don't chase, you attract. You don't wait, you rise. And in that rising, people who once took you for granted begin to see what they lost. That's why men often return when you evolve, not because of nostalgia, but because your new energy feels rare. They come back not to the old you, but to the version of you they can no longer reach without earning their back in. Authenticity is one of the most irresistible qualities a person can have because it's rooted in truth, not performance. In a world full of pretense, where people wear emotional masks to protect themselves or manipulate situations, being genuine feels like fresh air. When you stop trying to prove your worth and start living in alignment with who you really are, everything about you changes. Your energy, your presence, even the way people respond to you. A man can sense when a woman is acting out of fear, trying to please him, saying what she thinks he wants to hear, or hiding her true feelings to keep his interest. That kind of behavior might keep him around for a while, but it never builds a lasting connection. What truly captures a man's heart is authenticity, the kind of confidence that comes from being unapologetically yourself, even if that means walking away when something doesn't serve your peace. When you are authentic, you no longer chase love, you attract it. You don't need to fake confidence, play games, or use tactics to make someone miss you. You simply show up as yourself, calm, clear, and self-assured. Authenticity has its own quiet power because it communicates emotional security. It says, I know who I am, and I don't need to prove it to you. That kind of energy is rare, and men recognize it instantly. It's the difference between someone who performs love and someone who is love. When you show up as your true self, flaws and all, you create an emotional safety that makes a man feel seen and accepted. And the paradox is, when you no longer need to be chosen, that's when you often are. Authenticity is magnetic because it's real. It's the energy that doesn't shift depending on who's watching. It's the honesty in your words, the peace in your silence, the integrity in your actions. You're not playing hard to get. You're simply not available for anything that requires you to shrink yourself. A man may be drawn to beauty or charm, but what makes him stay, what makes him return, is the comfort of truth. When he realizes that with you, he never had to guess your intentions, never had to decode mixed signals, never had to question your honesty, he begins to understand that what you offered wasn't just affection, it was authenticity. And once he experiences that, everything else feels shallow. The beauty of authenticity is that it frees you from emotional games. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes or control perceptions because you trust that what's meant for you won't require pretending. When you live in that truth, your energy becomes calm and grounded, and that calmness is what draws people back to you. A man may leave thinking he'll find someone better or easier, but when he steps into a world full of superficial connections, he realizes how rare your authenticity was. He remembers the way you made him feel safe, inspired, accepted, and seen. And that memory becomes his quiet regret. Men always return to authenticity because it's the one thing they can't find in a world that's constantly pretending to care.